Cool.
Okay, get started, guys. So, close our laptops. Now, so we're moving from term 1, where we talked about metaphysics, and we're sort of done with that, and we're going to be looking more this term at ethics. So I'm going to talk in a moment what we mean by that and the fields that we're going to investigate. Okay. So just to frame it, this is going to be for both of you guys. So year 11s, where you're still working on your issues analysis, and then we're going to have the logic test at the end of next week. So we're going to catch up after recess today to finish all of the content and get you started on revision. Year 12s, you've got your draft feedback, so we're going to be implementing some of those changes on your metaphysics assignment. So there's going to be a little bit of overlap. You'll still be doing some metaphysics assignments as we get through some ethics content in order to set you up for your next assignment. I'm going to be really honest, I'm finding it really hard teaching year 11s and 12s at the same time. It is quite challenging. In the past, it's just teaching year 11s, you just focus on them, spend all my time on you guys, or just teaching year 12s. So I'm really doing my best. What I'm probably failing at, I think, a bit is sector and keeping everything up to date. Like people have said, oh, there's due dates here, due dates there. So I'm really going to endeavour this term to fix all that up and get up to scratch. So to start with, let's just have a bit of a conversation about what we did talk about last term. So we have metaphysics, come through guys, walk through quietly, thank you. We've got metaphysics is the field of philosophy. Guys, thank you, you're walking through quietly, aren't you? That's what Miss Forrest said. The field of philosophy concerned with the fundamental nature of reality, right? And so here's probably a pretty comprehensive list of the things we looked at. The first being ontology, all right? And that means like what exists. And in our first lesson, we started talking about the simples, the things that compose the bigger wholes, and we're talking about what's this smallest simple. Are these things in cars? Do they exist? We talked about things like act and potency, the way something is, the way that it could be. All right, so that's sort of all in ontology. In God, we talked about a classical philosophical understanding of God, arguments for. We looked at some arguments against or problems with those arguments. Year 12 at the time. We've looked at determinism, so the idea that you don't have any free will. We looked at simulation theory. And lastly, a couple of arguments around philosophy of mind. Was there anything else that we talked about in there that anyone can think of? I think that's a pretty good list. I'm pretty happy with that. So we'll move on. We're sort of leaving that for now, and we're delving into ethics. So when you hear the word ethics, you might think of the word morality. Okay, we can sort of use those synonymously. As a field of philosophy, it's defined as ethics, right? And I think this is like a simple way to define it. It's the study of right action. And we're going to view it. We're going to look at 3 topics within ethics. Okay. The first one is meta-ethics. Meta-ethics. So with our understanding of the word metaphysics, what do we anticipate meta-ethics might mean? What does the word meta mean? Beyond. Beyond. It means beyond and above and superior to. Superordinate to. So meta-ethics is something like the foundation of ethics, and it is what is the nature of right and wrong? Is there an objectively right thing and an objectively wrong thing, or is all morality just subjective? Okay, so that means, is it a fact that there are right and wrong ways to behave, or is it just our cultural opinion? So that's probably the first question of ethics, and it's the most important one. And we're not going to talk about it today, we'll talk about it on Wednesday. It's also probably one of my favourite parts of ethics to talk about, meta-ethics. The second one is ethical frameworks. We're going to look at 2 today, and an ethical framework is basically a decision-making process. So much within ethics, like when you have an ethical conversation with someone about what's the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do, it's sort of just based on our feelings, okay, based on our conscience, based on the way we feel about certain circumstance. What we're going to look at is a framework, which is basically an algorithm, a list of rules that we can apply to solve an ethical problem. All right, it's like in maths, you have a formula, right, and you punch the numbers in and it solves the problem. Here we got an ethical formula. You put the things in and it solves the problem for you. All right, it tells you what the correct answer is. But all the frameworks we're going to see have issues associated. And then the last part we're going to talk about is applied ethics, and that's where we start to look at particular issues in our day and age. So abortion, euthanasia, population issues, veganism, all kinds of good stuff to talk about. All right, so that's how we're breaking up ethics, right? So the study of right action, meta-ethics. Is there such thing as objectively right and wrong? Frameworks, okay, decision-making process, and then applied ethics, they're the ethical issues. So the first framework we're going to look at is what we'll define broadly as teleological. Teleological. So year 12s can probably tell me, because they've done Aristotle's 4 causes. Telos, teleos, what does that word mean? Can't remember. Yeah. So the word telos means the end, the goal, the thing to which it's driven towards. And so that's an ancient Greek idea, right? Aristotle is responsible for that, and he's talking about, the telos of humanity is excellence. We're driven towards excellence. The telos for a rock is the bottom of a valley. It's going to roll down. So it's like things have purposes, right? So the end. Now we're going to use, you will hear different words used. I'm going to try and stick to teleological, all right? But when you're reading and when you're listening to different things, you will hear these words used as well. Consequentialist, okay? Remember if I said telos is about the end, consequentialist is about consequences, okay? And then the other one is utilitarianism. We're going to use, for our purposes, they're going to mean the same thing, okay? And they're all going to apply to this same framework. There are distinctions to be made, but we don't need to worry about them, okay? So I'm going to just try and use the word teleological here to do with the end. And so, you're familiar with these, all right? These are called trolley cart problems, okay? And so you're presented with this circumstance where there's a train hurtling along the track, and it's going to squash these 5 people here, all right? But there's a lever right there. And what the lever will do is divert the train. It will change its track so that rather than killing these 5 people, ending 5 lives, it turns and it kills 1 person. And you just so happen to be standing next to the lever. Now, when we're confronted with a circumstance like this, people always try and escape it by, it's a hypothetical, right? They're always going to say, well, what about if I ran over to it and cut the duct tape before the train got there? Or what about, they're always trying to escape it. The point of a thought experiment is to entertain that question. What do you do when presented with this binary? So we're not trying to entertain possible ways of saving both people. This, you either save 1 or you save 5. You either let the train do the damage, kill 5 people, or you pull the lever and it's going to divert it and it's only going to kill 1 person. It's only going to end 1 person's life. Okay. Who thinks they would pull the lever? Let's just see a show of hands. Yeah. Okay. Who thinks they would do nothing? Let's see a show of hands. Yeah. Okay. So, why would you pull the lever, Kim?
It's simple, for me.
Simple.
For me, it is.
Yeah.
5 people die if I don't, 1 person does if I do.
Simple mathematics.
It's not going to mean I'm not going to have any guilt for killing 1 person instead of letting 5 die. I'm going to feel like that was the best decision I could have made at the time.
Sure.
Yeah. That's what I'll do.
All right, and Gemma, you're not pulling the lever. How come?
If I don't pull it, it's not my fault.
It's not your fault. Very good. Okay, so because you're saying if I pull the lever, now I'm responsible for that 1 person's death. Whereas if I don't pull the lever, it's not my fault that those 5 people. I didn't tie them to the railway track. Who knows why they're there? It's not my fault. Yeah. Is there a response to that?
Yes, there is.
Yeah.
I'd say through your inaction, you're responsible.
This is a good question, isn't it? Is choosing to not act a form of action? Does that, like, are you then responsible for those 5 people's deaths? Because you could have saved them. That's a question, you know. Very good. Okay, so we're gonna look at a number of different circumstances. Here, you're quite removed from it. All you're really doing is pressing a button, right? You're just moving the handle, all right? Moving the handle, so you're pretty removed from the circumstance. In the next one, you're on top of a bridge, and there's a well-built guy in front of you who's capable of stopping the train. You're a physics major. You know that his mass and its momentum will stop the train in time. It won't squash any more people. Okay? Does this change at all for you, Cam?
Not really, no.
Not really? No?
I would say that, you know, having to actually act, you know, and, you know, touch the person probably makes it a bit more, you know, mentally taxing, but it's still the same occasion after all.
It's still the same thing, it's just there's a little bit more exertion on your part required. Yeah? Nick, Taj? Dunno. Cara?
I feel like it changes my opinion because the thing is, if that person also knows that they can stop it and doesn't want to do it, you're forcing them.
You're forcing their hand. Yep, very good. So like a little bit different there, like that person has a choice, don't they? Whereas in the first circumstance, the one person. Yeah, okay, that's a good key difference to pick up. Yeah. Harry?
Yeah, I don't know, because you're taking away their choice, but if you let them have their choice, you're probably going to kill, you're killing 5 people.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But like Jim said, if I don't do anything, it's not really my problem because in that theory, it's that person's choice.
Yep.
If you're pushing them, then
Yep.
you're removing their
They
choice.
might need a bit of encouragement. Yeah. So Gemma, do you feel affirmed in your decision before? Like definitely not now. Yeah. Mena, anything to add?
I'll go the same way as Kira said. It's like definitely you'll just because there's 5 people in the train, but like you're putting that one person in danger. So basically, like I don't know. It's like you both be liable if you leave them, but you can't. You could just use the defense. It's like I'm not taking another person's life.
Sure.
You're not forcing it.
Yep.
It's like as the leaver, you had to make a choice because like the person, the one person, he was incapable of doing anything save himself.
Yeah.
So you can't really say that person might want to leave, and you can't really force their hand.
Yeah, very good point. Yeah. But I mean, Campbell's response is there's no significant difference in the outcome, isn't it? You know, in both of these outcomes, one if you pull the lever or push the bloke off, one person dies. Alright, so the outcome's the same, although there's a little bit more involvement on our part. And we don't really like to get blood on our hands. I don't want to be responsible for someone's death. Okay, let's look at...
It's also different the fact you're really pushing someone from free.
yeah, literally pushing someone off.
You're not like a lever, you're literally murdering someone.
Yeah. Alright, what's the Thanos quote? Sometimes the toughest choices. All right. How about this one? Okay, have a read. So. We want to see the loop. So this seems like a pretty obvious one, right? Unless you're lacking empathy, just worry about yourself. Okay, but you can add all kinds of little twists to it. You know, like so. Here's another one where we've got a 1-year-old and then maybe 20.
You're saving those to be honest.
You never lived a life.
They've lived a good life. Yeah, 90.
Yeah, well, they're going to die in like 5 years. Cut it short.
They'll be laying.
Yeah, but they could like become.
They might even
They
ask
could
for
get
it.
COVID and die
They're probably,
tomorrow.
they've been told.
Yeah.
They'll probably already know.
We might as well advocate for euthanasia at that point.
Okay.
So what
Mr.
there's another
Rose,
question
my
to spare
theory
now.
of that is,
Yeah.
one,
Uh,
so like
Must wait up.
There's an old lady on the road.
The old lady. What do you hit? The old lady.
No, you
Hit bone.
Yeah. So here the temptation is do nothing. Old people are going to die. They might die of a heart attack. Train instantly. Okay, a couple more. Does anyone think they would pull the lever in that circumstance? Really, Kim? Yeah. How come?
Well, here's the thing, right? We're talking about this in age. It's like, oh yeah, they have all this time to live. Like, I still see it as a life, as a person's life, and you know, I don't care about the age. I don't care if they're 90. I don't care if they're 30. If you pull a trigger and shot someone, it doesn't matter if it's 90, 30, 20. You're still killing them.
Yep.
Right. So I would still pull the lever. As I said, through inaction, you know, you still have.
So you're just looking at it simply more lives rather than quantity and quality, and you're not considering those other aspects.
I'm not considering those aspects.
Do you think those are important?
I mean, here's the thing, right?
Yeah.
We're not the age is a number, right? We're not saying that this one person is some criminal that has like committed genocide on a scale unprecedented, right? This is just about their age. They could we don't know if this 1-year-old is secretly going to be the next Hitler, right? We don't know if these 9-year-old people.
Yeah. Now we're entertaining all those hypotheticals though. Like, let's reduce it to the.
But that's what I'm
19
saying, is that age is not like other factors. I don't consider it in this circumstance.
Cool, Angela.
I would agree because it's all those people's lives compared to just one.
Yep.
But I think because humans are animals or whatnot, and we're protective of our young. Like that's one of our core.
We value young, innocent. Yep.
So if it could be looking at it differently, but even though it's all those people, you would feel like you got to protect that one.
Yeah. Yep.
Probably small enough to be those things.
Probably will have a heart attack on the spot.
Yeah. They might have a heart attack when they see the 1-year-old get squashed. Yeah.
With the old people over 90, it's probably going to be a percentage over 50. Most of them are probably bedridden, or some of them might even not want to live anymore.
Yep. So you're saying their quality of life.
Yeah, no, they're gonna die soon anyway, so just cut it short.
This is interesting. Yep.
Wouldn't the train not be able to run through all of them? Like eventually,
Nah, it's nuclear powered train.
It's halfway through, it's stopping.
Imagine.
Oh, it's only 10 old people then, is it?
Suffering situations.
Technically.
Yeah. Okay, so this one's going to be pretty similar to the first. Maybe just to finish up there, that's interesting. Like the difference here is we're starting to look at, Nick, we're starting to look at other important factors, all right? In the first circumstance, it was just people. Now we've got things like age, we've got quantity, we've got the quality of life, how much life do they have left, what's the potential for their existence. So we're considering more, right? All right, Bradley, do you want to read that for me?
You and 5 others are doing some underwater caving by the sea. As you go to leave, the morbidly obese member of the group gets stuck in the entrance cavity. If he can't get free, you will all drown except the fat guy. He will survive as his head is above the water. Fortunately, or unfortunately, someone has a stick of dynamite. You can use it on the fat guy, and it will clear an entrance for the remaining 4 team members. What do you do? I say kill him.
Yeah, this is very simple.
Simple.
Yeah, I'm sorry, John, but this is because you didn't work out.
The other question is how he can swim in the water.
Yeah, wait, why do we like to stick ourselves in the first place?
How do you get in?
Do I like kill everyone?
Bench is a good question.
How did you get in there?
Yeah, he was born in there. Would anyone not use the dynamite?
Why couldn't you just use it on like
No,
a rock or
because
something?
that-
Like, isn't it?
Um,
Oh, okay.
It's my life as well, and obviously humans tend to value their lives over others.
Yep.
So I reckon any rational person would kill one person to save them and 3 others.
Sure.
Where would you stick it though?
She said that she'd let herself die. Like,
Sorry,
live with the
no.
guilt.
Doesn't know what's happening. Think of how much magazine to be killing.
Yeah, she's
Okay.
If you don't kill him, how is he going to get out? Like, he'll
Well,
die
they're
eventually.
going to cave.
No,
Yeah, probably drive harder.
He will die of a heart attack. All right, one more.
Cholesterol.
So hang on, there we go. There's the guy. Sorry, he's blocked the entrance. Oh, I thought I had a dynamite animation. No, never mind. Sorry. Okay, let's have a read of this one. Vinny, can you read that?
You were in a hot air balloon with 4 other people. Unfortunately, the hot air balloon is falling into a volcano and all will perish unless someone is thrown overboard. It is evident that you are the heaviest person on the balloon. Will you volunteer to throw yourself over, or will you push someone else off to keep your life?
Push
Push.
I think it depends how much you've got going.
Everybody will turn on you after that if you push somebody else.
I mean, just take it
Because if you've got a chance, you can but if you're like lonely,
wait till the perfect time, then it's
I mean, okay, all right. Let's try have a bit of an ordered discussion about this. So just let's see. What are you going to do, Vinny? Push or jump?
I feel like realistically, as someone said, I don't know who it was, you always value your own life over anyone else's,
Yep.
like instinctually. So I feel like you'd probably end up pushing in the end, but at first you might be like thinking about it reasonably, and then as you get close to the volcano, you're like, nah, you just push someone.
Yep. Aiden?
I don't know. I'd like to think I would jump.
Yeah.
But yeah.
All right. So let's ask the question differently. Not what do you think you would do? What would be the right thing to do? So
Jump.
jump. Abbas, what do you reckon?
I would jump.
You would jump? Yeah.
Get someone else to voluntarily jump.
Voluntarily jump. Yep. Yep. They might need a bit of encouragement.
Yeah, they'll get some encouragement. Yeah.
Angela?
There's got to be one that's the last thing.
I'd probably. I think if it wasn't me.
Yeah, Harry
Yeah.
I don't want to be known. It's the one thing I don't want to happen.
Maybe you could die from the impact.
Thinking of things that happen. If you're not having
I just want to fall into a rock.
snack,
That's it. All right. So guys, right thing to do is jump. Chelsea. Jump, Gemma. Push. Yep, you're the right thing to do. Look after myself. Push someone else. Yep. Mena.
Well, if you push somebody over, the others are going to turn on you, and either way you're going to get pushed. So just get over with.
Push all of them off.
No, push myself.
Jump. You can jump. Yeah. Or you.
It depends how much you've got going for you.
Yeah.
And the other people. I mean, if you don't have much going for you, then yeah, I reckon you should jump. But like, if you got a family and kids and stuff, and somebody else does it, then just.
The other people might have some.
This
But
is
if I don't, just.
So you're considering all of the factors involved.
Yeah.
Yep.
I should jump.
We'll both to Chelsea.
I value my life.
You lot first then. I'm willing to jump for you until you said that. Yeah, not anymore.
You would jump?
I don't care.
Ah, we'll land on the rocks, not the volcano. And
I used my first
parachute you out to the magma.
I just did something lost that
Nice.
I
Okay.
didn't say that. What?
So let's see who can answer this. All right. So we've got all of those circumstances, and what we're doing is we're looking at individual events and we're saying how should we act, and then we're trying to abstract out a general principle. What are we getting at here? Vinny's got his hand.
Looking at the value of life.
The value of life, and so we're sort of saying more is better, right? More life is better. Very simple principle. Like if you just apply that rule and you go, I'm always going to act, Nick, according to how I can save the most people. Okay, so it's like, yep, pull the lever, yep, push the dude, yep, pull the lever, all right, more life is better, okay, more life is better, yes, pull the lever, all right, more life is better, yep, blow him up, more life is better, and this one's like a bit more personal, whether you push yourself off or push someone else off. So here's what it's pointing out. This is how we describe it. It's the theory, guys, of utility, and it's saying the greatest good for the greatest number of people. The greatest good for the greatest number of people. Very simple mathematical way of looking at ethics, right? Okay, so let's look at a notorious problem with it. So, Angela, do you want to read that for us?
You are a specialist doctor, and in your waiting room you have 5 people. One needs a new heart, one needs a new lung, one needs a new kidney, one needs a new liver, one is perfect.
Okay, so a couple of people are giggling because they can see the utilitarian solution to this problem. What's the solution?
Get the perfectly healthy person to help.
To help by taking their organs
Of course, willingly.
and giving them to the people. Imagine that, going to the doctor and he goes, oh mate, you're going to die today, I need your organs. It's for the greater good. 4 people are going to live, you know. So what does the doctor do? The doctor, if he's a utilitarian, he's going to, take the organs from that one healthy person and save all those other 4 people. Did he?
I feel like you shouldn't do it because surgeries and whatnot with those kinds of organs,
Yeah.
they can like die in surgery.
Very risky.
Pretty idea.
Yep.
Pretty bad idea.
Yep. But this is what happens when you take that principle. We want to save the most lives. Okay. Here we've reduced it to an absurdity. This seems absurd. You wouldn't do that to a person. You wouldn't be this doctor where they come in and take their organs. No?
And you can't even guarantee their well-being after the surgery's done.
Post-surgery. Yeah, maybe they'll keep smoking like a chimney and drinking like a...
Yeah, and also like their health-wise, if they're going to survive the surgery after with the shock and everything, because like the body needs time to react.
To respond to a new organ. How's it going to
Yeah.
take on this new organ? Yeah, all good things to consider. Very good. Okay, so that is what we call utilitarianism, teleological ethics, and it's founded by a guy called Jeremy Bentham. Okay, so he's the philosopher associated with it. I'm going to brush over this because I'll spend more time on this with the Year 12. He says, though, he doesn't just reduce it to lives and maximising the amount of lives. We have what's called the hedonic calculus, and he says all of these things are important. All right, so when we're assessing, Nick, how much pleasure we can get from something, how long does it last? Or how intense is it? Or how near or remote are the consequences or the pleasure? How widely, how many people does it affect? What's the certainty of the event occurring? So all of these things needing to be satisfied and weighing that up. Let's look at, though, historically where it's being used in the real world. So that word utilitarianism, that word teleological ethics, where we're concerned with the outcome, the results. Okay? So, Hannah, do you want to have a read there?
President Truman had the tough decision to decide whether to use a nuclear bomb to help end World War II. He knew that a land invasion of Japan would cause many soldiers' lives to be lost, but he also knew using the nuclear bomb would cause Japanese civilian deaths. He chose to drop the bombs to end the war quickly.
Very good. So, this is a prime example of it, right? So, I can make a sacrifice of civilians to save lots of other lives, also economic benefits, or we can have a long drawn out war, lots of long-term suffering, and so he made a utilitarian decision, right? One thing to consider about this, you're not often told this. Does anyone know how many Jewish people were killed during World War II?
6 million.
6 million, very good. Does anyone know how many Chinese peasants were slaughtered by the Japanese in their invasion?
Isn't it like, I think this is a little bit over the top, like 14, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a lot. It's like 2.5 times as much.
Yeah. It was, and if you've ever heard about what happened in Nanking.
Nanking, yeah. Has anyone heard of that before? 14 million Chinese peasants. And this was done by the Japanese. So that would have been part of his calculation. He's saying if we allow these people to continue doing what they're doing, they're going to just, they're already killing innocent civilians. They've already killed 14 million people. How many people died in Hiroshima and Nagasaki?
Over 300,000?
250,000, I think, yeah. So, and you know, there we're reducing people's lives to just numbers, right? We're just like, oh, it's just a number, it's just a number. Does anyone know the quote by Stalin?
One death is a tragedy, but a million is a statistic.
That's right, yeah. One death is a tragedy, but a million deaths is just, and that's how we're talking about it, right? Okay, we'll break for recess. That's gone a bit early, hasn't it? Cool, enjoy your recess.
Yeah,
It's like nice. Look.
I don't know where I stopped. I stopped at somewhere.
Helps my autism.
He's like, he realized that his sister got like engaged or something like that. Then like the guy, and he's like, oh, how dare she say that? And he's like, he's legit mistaking the whole letter. I'm like, dude, that's not what she's trying to say. He's like, oh, the pink and black. It's like,
But people do that. People listen to it.
I mean, like he full on like, how dare she say that? It's like took it the full opposite way. It's like, oh.
But that drunk guy, it's so hard because he's like fully aware that he's ruining his life.
Yeah.
But he's like, sort yourself out.
Because like, I think what he thinks is like, I already ruined it, like I already ruined part of it, so there's no point going back. And like I already enjoy drinking, so I just keep doing it. It's like, because like my reputation's already ruined, like that. So it's like, I think like he has that mindset, it's like something's like, but like, it's like, I love seeing the perspective of him. It's like your perspective is like, you know that you're right, and he's not thinking right. It's like you get to see his mind and like, yeah. And I really like it. Like, it's difficult, just like, especially the names. I don't,
That's the hardest thing.
yeah, the names, it's like, I don't know how to read that, so you just stop for 5 minutes. It's like,
Okay. So guys, get back on the track here where we're up to. So, just very quickly, we were talking about, okay, so those words, teleological ethics, utilitarianism is concerned with the end result, right? What's the outcome? And if the outcome's good, then we can perform whatever action. Here, the outcome was good despite killing 250,000 civilians, right? The outcome was good, just like 250,000. Here's another example. Alright, so Aidan, do you want to have a read of this one for us?
The Ford Pinto had placed the fuel tank at the back of the wheels, and this turned out to be a big problem. In rear-end crashes, the fuel tank would explode, often killing the people involved. Ford had two solutions: to either supply a part to all Ford Pinto vehicles across the country to stop the explosion occurring, or to just leave it and pay out the victims accordingly. So they did a cost-benefit analysis.
And so you can see the table there, okay? All right, we could pay $11 per part for all of these Ford Pintos across the nation. It's going to cost $137 million, okay? Or we can, pay out the $200,000 cost for each death that occurs, as well as the injuries that are going to occur, as well as, the vehicle damage and repair. So here is a classic example of, they're not concerned with life, it's concerned with the money. They look at the amount of money that's going to be lost if we just do the right thing and replace all the parts. We can make more money by just dealing with the consequences. Okay? So, pretty interesting example. How about smoking? Alright, smoking. Are there any benefits to smoking?
especially.
You look cool.
You look cool. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. You look wicked. Do you know, like, psychologically why people think smoking is cool?
Against the rules?
It's against the rules.
It's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I'm so swag. Look at
Maybe, yeah, yep.
Because of the media attraction, I guess it had in the 80s, 90s, 70s to 90s, even earlier.
Yep.
Where you get the big hero with always a cigarette in his mouth. Or
So like media portrayals of
Yeah.
cool people smoke. Yeah. So it's not that smoking's cool, it's that people who are cool are those that smoke. Yep.
Just to add on to his response. Back then they also thought that rich people smoke, so if you wanna look rich, you should smoke.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So rich people, Angela.
It could be like the danger factors to see smoke if you fire.
Oh, it's danger, and I'm like, you know, I'm a dangerous kind of guy. Yep.
Back in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, these health benefits for smoking.
That's right. Those were the claims. Everyone seen that old advertisement? Doctors recommend Camels. Camels was a type of cigarette. So one of the reasons I've heard is because when you smoke, right, you're releasing this smoke around you, and it's making your whole atmosphere appear much larger than you are. A little bit like, you know, how pufferfish blow themselves up, or people make themselves big to make themselves seem more imposing and terrifying. That's the same, supposedly, with smoke. And you know what it's like as well. If you're, like, maybe this has happened to you, you're walking along and someone blows smoke in your path, it's such an imposition. It's like they're imposing their body upon you. They're exhaling upon you. It's disgusting, all right? Or if you have to walk through smoke, or you can smell it, and maybe that's why. It's because it's sort of, they're perceived as bigger than they are. All right, anyway, so you can perform a cost-benefit analysis of smoking with regards to the government, okay? So if you think, if we allow people to smoke, well, it is going to increase healthcare costs, right? We have to deal with people that get cancer in their lungs and so forth. But look at the benefits. Cigarettes are taxed like something chronic. Like, I think it's like 80% of revenue on cigarettes is taxed. Like, it doesn't cost much to make them, but most of that money goes to the government. All right, and then they're branded with those awful images of, you know, people with throat cancer and all kinds of stuff. Plus, look, we can save money on healthcare because they're going to die. They're going to die, they eliminate themselves, so we don't need to care for them when they're older, we don't need to pay them their pension. We're going to have more houses to put people in because the people that smoke are going to be dead. Let's allow smoking. It's going to be great for our country. So another example, real life example of the consequences, the end. Okay, so they're not concerned about the right action, they're concerned about the end result. Okay, so that's utilitarianism, right? That's the first framework we're looking at. Teleological, concerned with the end, the outcome. Whatever the outcome is, as long as the outcome's good, we can do anything to get to that outcome. Now we're going to contrast that with the opposite. Okay, deontological ethics. All right. So deontology is the study of duty. All right, and it's about the act itself. Okay, so teleological, outcome. Deontological, act, the action itself. So it's concerned with the acts rather than the outcomes. And it's generally attributed to Immanuel Kant. So he's a continental philosopher writing about the 1700s. And we will look a little bit at him in coming weeks as well. Okay, so he comes up with this idea called the categorical imperative. So remember how utilitarianism said the greatest good for the greatest number. That was the principle, and we went through and applied it. Kant has the categorical imperative, and I've got 3 formulations of it along there. So Taj, can you have a read of that for me?
Act only according to that maxim by which you can, at the same time, rule that it should become a universal law.
All right, so only act in a way such that if that action could be universalized or made law, that everyone has to act that way, you'd be happy with that. All right. Maybe the second one there, Campbell.
Do not act on any principle that cannot be universalized.
That's it. Okay, so that's a simplified one, and then last one, Cara.
If an action's right for me, it's right for everyone. If it's wrong for one person, then it's wrong for all people.
All right, so you can sort of see undertones of a sort of golden rule thing here, but probably it's a little bit more broad, isn't it? It's talking about an act. If everyone's going to do it, and it's going to make the world a better place, or it's going to it's going to be a good action, it's good for everyone, or if it's a bad action, it's bad for everyone. Okay, so that's the categorical imperative. So let's try and apply this categorical imperative to some of these things that are going to pop up here. Okay? What might the categorical imperative say about murder? Okay? So just think, if I'm going to commit a murder, all right, what I'm saying is everyone should be allowed to do that. It should be a universal law that you're allowed to commit murder. Would that be good? If I commit murder, if everyone commits murder, what's going to happen? Everyone's going to be dead. There's going to be lots of death, lots of suffering. Okay, so that seems like a fairly obvious one. According to the categorical imperative, murder is wrong because we can't allow everyone to act that way. Okay. How about giving to charity? It's a good thing, right? And so, should it be a law that we have to give to charity? It would certainly improve the state of the world, right?
Some people can't.
According to the categorical imperative, yes. Yep, okay, very good. How about reducing your carbon footprint? So that means like using less electricity, so that there's less coal being burnt and put in the atmosphere as a result of your activities as a human being. So would that be a good or bad thing under the categorical imperative, Nick?
Good thing.
Very good. How about littering, Cara?
It should like be a law not to litter.
Yeah, don't litter, because if everyone litters, then there's going to be mountains of rubbish everywhere and the world will be a very ugly place. All right, how about lying? What do you reckon, Chelsea?
Say no.
No, yeah. Kant says don't lie, all right? Because if everyone lies all the time, then communication's impossible. So Kant says don't lie, even if your mum comes up to you with the ugliest yellow hat you've ever seen in your life and says, "What do you think of my hat, darling? Do you like my hat? Do I look gorgeous in my hat?" You don't say, "Oh, it's okay, mum." You say, "No, you tell the truth. You be honest." Okay? I like this example, catching more fish than the local limit allows. So you go down the river, they say, 3 bream per boat, or 3 mulloway per boat. There's a certain limit. What would happen if everyone sort of just took a little bit more each time? Yeah, eventually they're extinct. That's why those limits are occurring. So if everyone were to take more, all right, it's obviously going to end up with this deficit a bit later on. It's not a good universal rule to have. How about burning your rubbish?
What sort of rubbish?
Say again?
What sort of rubbish?
So in Vietnam, right? I lived there for about 3 months, and on the street they don't have the infrastructure that we've got, where they've got like sort of bins, and you just walk past the bin and put your rubbish in a bin. And so people will sweep up rubbish into a pile on the corner where the footpath is, and just burn it to get rid of it. And as a result, there's lots of, it stinks. There's lots of smoke and stuff in the atmosphere, lots of soot. Yeah, do you reckon that's going to be a good thing? No, it wouldn't be, especially if everyone was to do it. You can think of the cumulative emissions and so forth as a result of that. All right, driving past the old lady on the side of the road who needs some help. If everyone did it, no, she wouldn't get any help. Okay, so we can see under the categorical imperative, we should help that woman out. What about snapping a leaf off a tree? Walking past a tree, just snapping a leaf off it.
There might be hardly any consequence, but you don't do it anyway because the consequence, even if it is slightly negative, is sort of...
Yeah, so you might think there's no consequence if I take a leaf, but if everyone were to perform that same action to the same tree, it'd probably kill the tree, right? So you can see applying this categorical imperative even to something that's seemingly harmless, it can lead to some strong conclusions, right? Okay, so there's a famous story about Kant where, when he's reflecting on this categorical imperative, he says, this is sort of the, it's after he's died, but people say, imagine if, let's apply the categorical imperative to this circumstance, okay? It's World War II. You're a good person. You've got some Jews hidden in the attic. You're protecting them from the Germans. They're out hunting for the Jews. They're trying to find them. The guy knocks on the door. You're Immanuel Kant. You open the door and he goes, "Do you have any Jews here?" What do you do if you're applying the categorical imperative?
You don't lie.
You don't lie, which means you say, yeah, they're upstairs. That's that. So we can see if you apply the categorical imperative all the time, you end up with absurd conclusions. If you apply the utilitarian ethic all the time, you end up with the circumstance like the doctor. They both have these sort of absurd conclusions that they lean to. We need to find some way to synthesize. Comment?
With the lying, it may say that you can't lie, but that doesn't mean you can't not answer
Very
a
good.
question.
Yeah, so you could refuse to answer the question or answer a different question, but you don't have to, you're not obligated to answer a question, but you are under the categorical imperative obligated not to lie. So this is the meaning, there's Immanuel Kant lying or letting people die horrific deaths. Okay, so look, enough from me. Let's pull out our journals. We haven't done that for a while. And I've just got 4 things for us to reflect on. Okay? We want the distinction between teleological and deontological. One's about the outcome, one is about the act, and then describe the obvious problems with each for me.